Welcome to our webinar. Today's guest is Serge Ramelli from Paris and currently in Los Angeles. Serge is an amazing landscape photographer, and I'm very excited to hear how Serge uses Aurora to really make his images pop.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I've been, I've been doing photography since 2004, and I felt in love for HDR. I want to say like in 2006 or 7 when I first saw the first HDR. I think it was done by Trey Ratcliffe at the time. And I started following Trey, and we eventually became very good friends. We even worked together at several occasions. And I just felt in love. So when he developed the Aurora with you guys, I was blown away because there was really some issues that I had with HDR before, in the looks, in the inability to do different tone mapping for different parts of the image, which I'm going to go into in details. And the thing is with what I love about HDR is that you are there, you have an amazing sunset, and sunset can really be very, very saturated and very, crazy. And the eyes can see all the details of the sun and then all the details of the shadow. And then you take a photo, you either have a very, great sunset, but then you're missing all the shadows detail, everything, everything. Like if you're in the street, everything, the whole street is black and only the sun is good. Or if you're like, in Big Sur, the whole sky is good, but then the water is very dark, because some of the sunsets that we have, the dynamic range is so big that one photo cannot capture everything. So that's why we do bracketing. Bracketing means taking different exposures. I only bracket 3 photos, and I always have done that. I know a lot of people do 5, do 9. I only do -2, 0, and +2 because I'm lazy and because it's been working for me for 16 years. Or not 16 years, maybe 10 years. I've been very active in HDR, a little more than 10 years. And so that's what I do. And every time, so when do I use HDR? Every time the sun is around and I'm taking a sunset or a golden hour, I am bracketing. Because usually I'll use Aurora. And one thing, I've just published 4 different books, really big books on photography, one on Paris and Los Angeles, and then one on Venice, and now, Paris, LA, Paris, New York was black and white, and then Venice and Los Angeles was colors. And in fact, my Los Angeles book that just came out, the cover was done using Aurora HDR, and about 25% of the photo inside of the book was done with Aurora HDR. So voila, I'm really in love with this, and let's start retouching some photos. So I'm going to click on Open Image. I've created a whole bunch of projects for you guys today. And let's see, why don't we start with a crazy photo? Oh yeah, let's start with this one. This is a funny story. So what I do is I'm just going to select the underexposed photo, the overexposed photo, and the normal exposure. I was in the north of France, and okay, so here is the HDR will be made from this. So I'm just going to click on alignment, and I also go here. I always make sure that chromatic aberration removal is on. Okay, by default, you got color denoise. Now, ghost reduction, I only use when there is foliage involved. In this case, there's no foliage, so I don't use it. And I'm going to click on Create HDR. This photo, it's a funny story. I was taking some photos in Normandy, and I didn't, I was not really happy with my weekend. I was driving back, and then my stepbrother was really hungry and said, "Oh, why don't we stop in Amiens?" And Amiens is I didn't know that. I've never been to Amiens, but it has a very medieval downtown, sort of like heart of the city. It's very medieval. And we started having dinner, and I'm just talking while it's doing the raw processing, because this is like 3 files of 42 million pixels. So it's going to take a little while before we can process it. But anyway, so I was having dinner with my family, and then I see this amazing sunset, and I was like, guys, I gotta, I ordered my food and I just started taking photos, and it's some of my best, favorite HDR of all times that I'm about to show you, because it's such a pretty village. So here we go. That's out of the blue. That's the tone mapping that you get. Now, I'm by default using my preset. Now, I'm a partner of Aurora HDR, and so they were kind enough to use my preset, but I'm not going to use preset for this one because I want to show you, how to work without preset. So I'm actually even going to turn off this option of seeing presets, and I'm going to go here and click Reset All, so that we have a we're sure we're not using anything. What I usually do, so the first panel, which is called HDR Basic, has the classics that you would find in Camera Raw and Lightroom, which is you can open up shadows, you can bring on the highlights. So I always start by opening up shadows, bringing on highlights, and then I do my white and black point. Why do I do that? Because I'm trying to get a proper exposure and a proper contrast before I decide about colors. So the way to do that is if you hold on the Alt key on your keyboard, or Option key, and you use the black point, you can see in real time what we call a black point. So what is a black point? Well, a black point is a pixel who is 100% pure black. There's no more information, okay? And for my HDR, I like to have about that much, about, I would say 3-4% of the photo completely black. And then you do the reverse with the white slider. So I can go here. Now, with the white slider, I don't go that far because I don't want to burn. So I want to make sure I don't burn anything. So I do something like this because I want to make sure nothing is burned. So that's my basic. And you see there's a lot of sensor dust on this one. I just came from the beach and I'll show you. I also want to show you can work with Photoshop to create that. I like to use Photoshop too. I know we can use Snap Hill, which is a Scanlan product, but I use Photoshop. But I think it's a good way also to show you how you can go back and forth between softwares. Anyways, for now, let's take care of the retouching stuff. So now we've got a basic contrast that I like. It's got a mood. It's maybe a little too dark, so I'm going to expose it, maybe add more contrast. And now and boost the exposure. I'm ready to tackle the colors. And the main thing that's going to really change the colors, and guys, don't hesitate to stop me at any point of this process. This is a webinar. Anyway, so now I'm going to try to nail the colors. So because it's different raw files, I got different settings. You got daylight. So daylight is going to give it quite of a blue feelings. And then you have cloudy, and cloudy, which is going to make it warmer. And then you have shade that's going to make it even more warmer. Now, I want to give you a trick about sunset that back in the days, I used to always go to shade and add magenta. That was my formula. And it's okay, it makes a really crazy sort of sunset. But I find that it's more interesting to have contrast of color in the sky. So what I usually do now is I go to daylight. And what you want to make sure, because daylight, you're going to get some blue back. Okay, you want to make sure I want to go from blue to warm. I don't want to go from grayish to warm. So the way to do that is you can even add more blue to the sky, because you see, if I add more blue, I'm just overdoing it here. Everything is becoming blue, but I just don't want to go from gray to warm. I want to go from blue to warm. So I'm going to add some blue, and I'm going to add some magenta to make it pop. Okay, so that's maybe a little dark, so I'm going to boost that. Maybe a little too much blue, actually. Okay, and now I want to do a different tone mapping or HDR treatment for the sky. So let's see the other settings first. I want to show you a couple of things. So one is HDR Enhance. I never use it on my basic layer because it's sort of going to give like a very clarity look to it, which I don't like. I use Smart Tone a lot. Smart Tone is amazing. Check this out. When you move Smart Tone to the right, it's going to make the whole photo brighter. So Smart Tone has a way of sort of opening the shadows with a bit of contrast. So I use Smart Tone a bit, but then I always add contrast as I use Smart Tones. They really go hand in hand, okay? And then maybe I can bring down a little bit the highlights a little bit. Now on this one, this was a crazy sunset, so I really want to add some vibrance to it to make it pop. And I want to do, the problem is I lost a lot of the warmth that was in the sun, but we'll do that on a local layer. HDR structure, denoise, I can do a little bit of basic denoising on the basic layer. I do usually 10, no more than that. And everything else I'm not going to do on the basic layer, because now we're going to use the real power of our HDR, which is layers. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to click plus and add a new adjustment layer. Okay. And now I want to make the sun really pop. Okay. So I'm only looking at this section of the photo, and I'm going to say, yeah, but this was a lot more yellow. So I'm going to add a lot of yellow. I'm going to add a lot of magenta. And I'm going to add some vibrance to it. Okay. Now it's pretty cool, but I lost some of the blue in the sky. So what I can do is, there's different ways of doing it. You really have to decide that if you like this effect, you know, if you want this effect to be mainly on photo, I actually like this effect a lot. But now I lost kind of the blue in the sky. So what I can do is I can go here to brush and click on brush. And I'm going to click on, instead of paint, I'm going to click on erase. Okay, and I'm going to erase the effect here on the top of the skies because I lost some of the blue that I had going. And remember, I want to go from blue to warm here. Okay. All right, so it has a little bit of a lag, but you see now it's bringing back the blue. Okay, maybe I'm going to do that here also. There's really a lot of dust. You see now it brings back, so now the blue goes toward the orange. Now it's a little too much, so I can bring it back. I can paint it back. You see, if you went too far, it added too much blue. I can paint it back, but this time I can use the opacity, a very low opacity, maybe 17%. So I'm bringing back warm back on the blue just until it feels right. I'm sorry about all the sensor dust. We'll correct that at the end of the video. But already we have a much nicer photo. And if you want it to be before and after, that's the before and after, before, after. You can go here also. Hold on, I have to click on done. You can go here and you can see the before and after. It's pretty crazy already. Wait till I'm done with it. Okay, I can take this out. So that's that. Usually I like to give details to the house, so I'm going to create a layer. So this one was really just for the, you know, sort of giving the warm back. Okay, now I'm going to make a new adjustment layer, and this time it's going to bring up details from the city. So I am going to just do that. So I'm going to go to HDR detail boost. I'm first going to go to HDR structure, which is here, and add a little bit of HDR structure. But remember, see, now we got a very, very sharpening on the clouds. It's really horrible. I really don't like that. So I'm going to go to HDR detail boost, and I'm going to make it even worse by adding small, medium, and large details. But I like what it does on the structure of the city. I don't like what it does on the sky. So, well, if only there was a brush, and there is a brush. Now this time I'm going to make sure paint is on. I'm going to make sure the opacity is about at 50%. Maybe I'm going to lower the size of my brush. You can right click to lower the size of the brush. And I'm just going to paint here. And wait for it. You see, it's all, it's going to create a mask. It takes a little bit of time because it's a huge file. But if you give it a sec, voila. And now you see there's a mask here. It's all black, and I painted in white just where I'm bringing back details. Okay. Now, I love perfect clouds, and I love to have details. You know, we have a very detailed city, but we have still some details in the sky, plus there's a lot of dust. So I want to add some radiance to the sky, but only to the sky to have a contrast between sharpen, you know, very sharpened city with perfect clouds, okay? Is there any questions so far, guys?
Yes, there are a couple questions referencing some of the things you did in your original layer, actually, and that is you had set your black and white levels, so you had the maximum dynamic range, and then you changed your exposure, and somebody was curious if you would then go back and readjust your black and white points, or if you would that was just a good natural workflow that you like to do.
No, I never go back on my black and white points. I just usually leave it there. I mean, unless I see that there is really a problem with the black and white points, and then I do a new adjustment layer. But I love the contrast of this photo so far. I'm not done with it, but I really love the contrast. So now I'm going to create a new adjustment layer just for the sky, and I'm going to go to the very powerful window here, panel, sorry, called Image Radiance, and check this out. As I add Image Radiance, it has a sort of a glow too that I really like, but it works great on the sky, it works great on the water, but it took out all the details I just added on the city. So again, and that's the power of Aurora, is you can go here, I can go to adjustment, and I can paint this effect, and this time I'm going to make sure the opacity is 100%. I want the full effect. Right click, big brush, and as I start brushing, the effect only appears when I start brushing. So I'm not going to brush with the CD. I just want to do it on the water. You know, one thing I don't like about water is the small ripples that you have. Okay, and now I'm basically there where I want it to be. You know, it's a crazy image. It's one of my favorite HDR I've done. I love very strong and saturated images. But if you don't like that, you can always go to adjustment layer, And you can just, lower the vibrance and lower the contrast to your taste to make it, washy-washy if you want to. And if you want to make sure you don't get any likes or comments on social media, you can go ahead and do that. But if you want to be very popular and make money, stay with that. I'm just kidding. But I want to tell you a little story, a test that I did. It's if you take 10 photos and you have, I would say 8 regular photos and 2 HDR photos, I'm talking like really well done, but like very saturated, kind of like this stuff of HDR, and you show it to people which are not photographers, the regular public, the world, 90% of the chance they will pick the 2 HDR as the favorite. Now, if you show the same photo to professional photographers, 90% of the time they will not pick the 2 HDR as their favorite photo. Why is that? Because I believe some professional photographers believe that HDR is cheating, it's too easy, it's a trick, it's a plugin, it's whatever, But I don't do photography for professional photographers. I do photography for my galleries, my books, and my publishers, and the public who buys my photos, and they love HDR. What can I say? I give it to them, Anyways, that being said, I need to take care. So there's a lot of dust on that photo. So let's do a little last adjustment. Maybe on this one, I actually want to add some contrast, maybe make it a little bit brighter. I don't know if you see it. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And then I actually like it this way. So now I'm going to go to File, Open into Photoshop. And so it's processing, and it's good. It's doing this whole thing. It's combining all these layers into one and sending it over to Photoshop, who is in front of you guys launching here. Voila. Okay, so it opens as a raw file, because a TIFF file, you just click on Open Image, and you are into Photoshop. And then I'm just going to duplicate the background layer. I'm just going to take the famous spotting brush tool, and I'm just going to clean up this image of all the crazy dust that was there. I'm even going to erase the reflection of that antenna, because I can. And I don't think anybody's going to notice that that antenna is missing. It was just taking too much attention. And I would spend a lot more time if I had to print it. I would really go like 100%, and voila. I still think there is a little too much going on in the sky. I think my sky is a little too much. But anyways, that was the first part. That's the before. That's the after. Okay, so voila. I'm gonna close this. I'm not going to save it. That was just to show you what I'm doing. I'm going to go back to Aurora, and same thing here. I'm just going to open a new file, open images. Any questions so far?
When you're working on an image, do you magnify to 100% to look at grain and to make sure that you like it?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I do. I mean, if it goes into one of my books or one of the gallery, that's where that's what takes me the most time, is I really go into it, and make sure that my nose is perfect and that. But if it goes to the web, I do it, but I do it much faster, because on the web, you can get away. So chromatic aberration. This is another very favorite of mine. This is Paris. This is the Alexander III Bridge in Paris. Crazy sunset. Crazy, crazy, crazy sunset. Any other questions?
Do you ever use the HDR enhance as a separate layer and then mask that in and out? One of the questions. Sometimes
I do that. I'm more fan of the HDR structure than the HDR enhance for some reason. On my photo, it seems to I've used more the HDR structure than the HDR enhance. But I do use. Oh, I forgot to align my photos. That's one thing. You see how? Check this out. That's a rookie mistake. This is what happens when you forgot to click align. Look at that. It's awful. It's awful. So let's do it again. You have to make sure you click on alignment. I forgot to do that. All right. So here, here is another photo. So this one, the clouds were moving really fast, and so the clouds kind of look weird because and that's when I have a trick for that. I'll show you. But first, this time I want to introduce you to presets. So you can click here. Here's presets. You got different category, basic, landscape, realistic HDR, and for every category you can see the preview here down there. And there is the Serge Ramelli preset installed by default on Aurora. Check this out. That's crazy. Okay. And now if I click on Photo Search Basic, for example, as a preset, it's going to do a whole bunch of things here, which are basic. And you can really see something is wrong with the clouds there. But that's fine. We'll see if we can correct that. I hope we can correct that. So the first thing is when I use a preset, basically what it did, if you look at it, it added some contrast, did a bit of shadows and white and black. So every time you use a preset, you still have to hold the Option key and check your black points. In this case, I want it a bit stronger. Check your white point. Oh my God, look, the white point is way too strong. So remember, I'm holding the Option key to see that. Okay. Now the sun really burned the photo. I should maybe have taken one more exposure, but I do not care. The overall photo is a bit dark, and I don't really like the colors on this one. So let's see here. Let's play around with daylight, what it gives us. Daylight is very green. This was shot also a while ago. This was shot with a Canon 5D Mark II. It's an old photo, but it was a crazy sunset. Shade. I think I'm going to go to shade on this one. Let's see here. The white balance is so important, as it's the one factor that's going to change so much your photo. Is that shade? Oh, that's weird. I thought shade had a bit more. And I always add a bit of magenta on this one. So I think the one thing I spend the most time on is finding the right white balance. On sunset, it really can destroy or not your photo. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, maybe if I go blue and then magenta, or I can go all warm. And I haven't touched this, but I think blue, I like blue. I like the blue. I like the idea of the blue in the sky, and I like the idea of magenta. I don't like the green. See that the green is really ugly, but so I think I'm playing it by ear really. Okay, and maybe just add a little bit of vibrance and saturation to it. But now we got something really weird with the clouds here. If you click on the photo, because it's mixing all the exposure. By the way, talking about going in at 100%, we can see the noise level of the basic layer. And it is a bit noisy, so why don't we go to the HDR denoise and maybe go like 10. It's very powerful. I don't think you'll see it on the video, but it will just make it more smooth. Okay, so let's see. See, it's processing as you move. So if it looks okay, now it's pretty sharp. Okay, cool. So now, okay, fit to screen. I kind of like this basic idea. Now, the thing that's amazing about Aurora is that you can go in here and you can add some of the HDR bracketed layer, because I want to see what happens if I add the underexposed photo. Oh, look at that. This one was -3 and +3, which is a mistake, because I always do -2 and +2, and by mistake this day I did -3 and +3. So I'm adding as a layer the original underexposed photo. Isn't that crazy? Now, it's going to look awful at first. I warn you, it's going to look very dark. I warn you, but at least the clouds are kind of cool, right? And so now I can boost the exposure a little bit, open the shadows a bit, just trying to get the clouds to match. And I'm looking at the colors of clouds, maybe adding back some blue and back some magenta like I did. Okay. Voila, maybe add a bit of radiance to it. And I'm only looking at the clouds here. I'm just looking at the clouds. And now I'm going to take a brush, take a little brush, and I'm going to go and start painting. Okay, opacity 100%, softness 100%, size, everything is 100%. Okay, I'm going to start painting. And you see, as I start painting, it brings back the underexposed clouds, which has more details, and it doesn't have this sort of blurry effect that I had. Okay. You see how blurry it's there, and boom. Now, in here, it's getting a little dark. That's fine. That's okay by me. Ooh, it moved a bit because the original is not aligned. So that's, you have to be very careful on that. You see, that for some reason, the original did not align. That's maybe a bug, or maybe I'm doing something wrong. But so it's moved a little bit. So what I do when it's like this, I erase it. I only use it on clouds. Make sure you don't use it on the statue or anything, just on clouds. It was just to make the cloud. Check this out, the difference. You see the clouds, they were all kind of weird. They had like different exposure, and now they're, I found, a little more natural. Well, I kind of lost the color though. I lost the blue in the color. So, but I'm still on that layer, so I can add back the vibrance. You know, maybe add a bit more blue. Maybe not that much exposure. Let's see here. Yeah, a little more blue, not so much. A little more magenta. because some of the clouds here look weird, and I think it's kind of helping. And I love the idea that you can, just blend. Oh, I'm doing erase now. Well, you know what? Actually, no, because on some of the clouds it just looked weird, the different exposure. But I'm still missing the color that I had. So you just play around until you get, maybe add a bit more saturation on that layer in vibrance. Maybe add lower a bit the exposure, add more contrast. And here it's kind of weird, so I'm going to erase it just at least here. So I'm just, blending different type of clouds. Okay, here's the before and the after. Let's see, sometimes, yeah, I like what it does here. I don't like what it does there. So I'm still on erase. I'm going to erase the effect here and bring back some of the original layers so you get best of both worlds. Voila. Voila, voila. And I'm going to paint here this. It was just like some clouds really looked weird. Okay, that's good. So now I'm ready for my usual, sharpness against puffy clouds thing. Oh, I messed up here again. So I have to go to erase. Make sure default towel is very, yeah, you don't want to mess with their statues with that underexposed photo. But that's good. I kind of like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go and add a new adjustment layer. And this time I'm going to take care, I'm going to add some details here on the statues. So again, I can try doing HDR enhance, see what it does. I'm only looking at the statue. It doesn't do much here. I can try smart tones. Yeah, a bit of smart tones can work on the statue, but I want to do some HDR structure. And I want to add a little bit of details, medium and large, as usual. But I'm only doing it on the statue, so because I don't like what it does on the sky here. So I was already on the brush. I'm going to paint. And I'm going to paint back the details just on that statue and maybe just here. Just a little bit, not much. But it just makes that statue a little more shiny. Okay, and let's see here, before, after. Okay, well, I did, see, that's something that can happen. It did the reverse. You see, a mask by default, white reveals, black conceals. So you see the sharpening is happening everywhere. Why did I do that? Because I forgot that I was on erase. But Aurora has an amazing. So what I mean is I brought in softness on the statue and details on the sky. I need to invert that. So you can just go to mask and invert. And boom, and now it's going to become white with 2 white dots, and now it's puffy everywhere, and the details are just on the statue, just like I wanted. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to add a new adjustment layer, and I want to add some radiance to the sky. I don't know what it is about radiance. I just love radiance, just a little bit. Maybe even add a bit of vividness to it, a little bit. Yeah, just here, oh, sorry. I made the same mistake. I was on erase, so I have to invert the mask again. Yeah, you have to make sure you're on paint if you want to add the effect that you just created. Okay, and I'm just adding a little bit of radiance to maybe here also a little bit to make even more puffy clouds. So now I got details a lot here, and I got puffy clouds there. And I'm ready to do like a last adjustment layer, which is going to be like my last thing, and I can, add even more contrast. Open up the shadows again, and you are like developing upon developing upon developing photos. So you have to be careful because you're going to add a lot of saturation. Maybe open up the shadows even more. And I think I'm going to lower a little bit the saturation and the vibrance on this one. See if it does something, and just check out the before. So sometimes you have a bit of a lag, the before and the after. I don't see much difference. Yeah, okay, it just makes it a little bit brighter. And you can see here the before and the after, the before and the after. I really like this photo. I think I'm going to crop it a little bit because, yeah, I want to make it a little more I want to make that like this, a little more panoramic, and maybe just cut this thing out there, at least to the golden thing. Yeah, something like this, and voila. And so a couple of options here. You can, if you're like not sure this is the right way to go, you can just save this. you can save it as an Aurora HDR file, and you can take back to where you left off, or you can just export it. You can export it, in JPEG, in TIFF, anything that you want, wherever you want, any format that you want.
Speaking of exporting, one of the viewers asked if you ever use sharpening on export.
Never, because I always have this layer where I did the small details, middle details, sharp details, HDR structure. So I've already decided where I want the photo to be really sharp. So I don't want to re-add stuff on it. Okay, let me show you another thing that's kind of cool. I'm just going to put up a new set of. I want to show you an image where it's a funny story. A friend of mine, a student of mine actually called me, said, "Oh, I'm in Los Angeles. Can you come with me? I'm not going to say this one. I want to shoot the Hollywood sign from behind." And I've done it many times, but they closed the road to go there. So now it's kind of complex to go up there. But anyway, he figured it out. It's about a 1-hour hike, and it's not the hardest. The hike is not hard, but it's complex. Like you literally have to almost go through people's backyard. I'm not kidding. Between two houses at one point to get to the right road. I don't know why it's like that, but they don't want people up there. But it's okay. You can. It's legal. It's just you have to know your ways around, and because you have to get through like a gated community and blah blah blah. But it's just full of tourists doing it every day. Anyways, we went up there, and I did the photo with Aurora, and I did what I'm about to show you. And about 4 days later, a friend calls me, says the state of California is looking for a new iconic photo of Los Angeles to represent Hollywood in the world. And I submitted the photo I'm about to do, and I won first place. And now it's being used by the state of California to represent Hollywood, thanks to Aurora HDR. So that's a cool thing that happened. But I did a lot of it to that photo. Check this out. It's back up all your seatbelt, because you're in for a treat on this one. Talk about special effects. So first thing that I did on this one is I made it a lot warmer. Let's add some contrast. I'm going to do my usual flow, open the shadows, bring on the highlights. I'm going to do my blacks. I'm going to do my whites. Okay. And maybe make it even warmer. Yeah, something like that. Smart tone, yes. I'm a big, but remember, smart tone goes hand to hand with contrast. So, all right. And I wanted to make a panel out of it. So what I did is I took the crop tool and then make sure it's straight, the horizon is straight, and I'm going to cut this like this and make it. That's the photo that one was a pano. Okay, so it was like that. But I'm like, oh, I love the photo, but the skies is so boring. All right, check this out. In Aurora, you can add a new image layer. You can add an image. And so I think it was this guy here. Okay, and I added this guy on top of the image. Now, this is one of my favorite sky I shot in Florida. And for now, it's like, yeah, but how do you blend it? Well, using the blending modes. What I did is I went on to multiply. So you see now it adds the sky there, but it looks really fake, right? So you can always, make the exposure of the sky. But here's the trick. You have to use it lightly. So what I did is I took a brush. Okay, I make sure I'm on paint and that the opacity was very low, like very, very low, maybe under 20%. And then I started maybe adding a little bit of size, and I started brushing a little bit the clouds, but just a tiny bit, just to bring back a little bit of structure to the sky. Not on the horizon, just a little bit, brush by brush. You don't want a full sky there. Something like that. Voila. Okay, and then I could start doing my thing. So I just added, check this out, before, after. Just added a little bit of cloud structure, very little. And I can go here, and now I can start doing the magic, because now I've got two images blend together. So on this one, I'm going to add a lot more contrast. Maybe. I think I want to maybe lower a little bit of variance, a little too much now. When you add contrast, adding contrast really adds things. Okay, now I want to do a different treatment for the sky and a different treatment for the letters. So Let's look at the sky first, maybe. So on the sky, I think I want to add more yellow and more red, more vibrance. But I only want it on the sky and not everywhere. Okay, so again, same idea. I take a brush. I could use, let me show you. I could use gradient mask, for example, instead of a brush. You click and drag, and now the effect that I did is only on the gradient. Check this out. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So that's one way of doing it. You know, it's kind of faster than using the brush. I could do it that way. And now I'm going to add a new layer, a new adjustment layer. And this time I'm looking at the Hollywood letters, and I want to add some HDR on hands. I want to add some exposure. I want to add some HDR structure. I want to add some details, medium and large. But it's really looking weird. So now I can click on the brush here and maybe boost the opacity of my brush, like maybe 80%, and just brush that on the sign and nothing else. And voila, and that's how I won first place. And now this image represents Hollywood and movie making in the world from the state of California. And that's before and that's the after. Isn't that crazy?
That's great. That's amazing. I think people have learned a lot of little tricks there. We did have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One was, do you ever use Aurora on a single image versus bracketed images?
All the time. In fact, the cover of my early book is a single Aurora file, and I'll show that. Actually, I'll show that to you in the next video, but all the time. All right. So if there is no more questions, then maybe actually let me save that file. So if you, Laura, if you want to use it to promote the webinar later on, because it was created with the webinar, I'm going to export it. So I'm going to export it as a JPEG. And when I export for the web, let me talk to you about that. A lot of stuff that I do is just for Instagram. And Instagram, Facebook, 500px, the web, the internet, the web. So what I do is I usually go to sharpen none, resize long edge, and put 2500 pixel. Why 2500 pixel? Because some social media, when somebody is watching on their like IMI 5K and they'll go full screen, you will want to have 2500 pixel wide of resolution to really impress that viewer. So that's just my rule. I always export to social media at 2500 pixel, quality around 85. That's good. And I'm going to put this on the desktop for Lori in case she wants to use it. So Command D to go on your desktop and save. Boom. Okay, now using Aurora HDR on one, just one photo. Yeah, this one. That's a good one. That's a good one. So I'm not going to save. Okay, this is a very old photo that I shot. Okay, so I'm going to create HDR out of one raw file. It was taken like 10 years ago with the Canon 5D Mark II. And so you have to be careful with very old raw files because they're usually very noisy. But Aurora still has a lot of, of different things. So look at that. Just using Photo Search Basic, check this out, like out before, after, right off the bat. I mean, that's crazy. I'm going to reset the filters for now. And I want to show you something. I want to make the building straight. So you can go here in Transform, and you can play around. So what I usually do when I use Transform is first I rotate my photo to make sure that whatever is going on here is as much going on there, like that the slope that I have here is the same than the slope there. So which was not the case at 0. We see it was kind of like more, the slope was stronger here than here. So I rotate my image, and then I use vertical to make it straight. Okay, but then you lose all kind of stuff in the sky. You're like, oh no, I don't want to lose all that stuff in the sky. Well, there comes the Y offset. Look at that. And you can Y offset it to your liking. Okay. And then voila. Aspect. You can even use the aspect ratio, scale, X offset. That's good. All right. I like that. So done. And let's see here. Distortion, there's a bit of a barrel effect here. Let's see if we can do something about that. A little barrel effect. And you see here, you have another remove chromatic aberration. So, but you have to go in at 100% to see if there is chromatic aberration on this one. There's a little bit of red there. So let's see if it does the trick to remove chromatic aberration. Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, it took a little bit of fringe. I don't think you can see much on the video. And then let me go back to fit to screen. Now we get this gray stuff there, which is kind of weird. That's fine because we got the crop tool. And I can crop this image, and I can crop this image here. And you see here, the bottom is super noisy because the dynamic range of the Canon 5D Mark II is not like the Sony. And so there's a lot of noise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in at 100% and then see all that noise. And already I'm going to go to the HDR denoise and take care of that. And instead of doing 10, I'm going to do 20 here. And that should take care of most of it. Yeah, it actually did. It's not so bad. It's not so bad. Okay, cool. So now we got a basic idea, and that's just a single raw file. And now I can play around with it. You know, I can boost the smart tone, and remember to boost contrast with it. Maybe not so much. You have to be gentle. Maybe open up the shadows, bring down a bit the highlights. You do my black point. I'm going to do my white point. Okay, the photo is way too blue, so remember I always deal with white balance once the basic contrast is done. So maybe a little bit of yellowish, maybe a little bit of magenta just to bring. It was a sunset, in fact, it was a golden hour. It was a golden hour, but check it out, the before, after, one single raw file. I want to add some radiance on the sky because I can, and I also want to add some radiance on the bottom to further take care of the noise. So add a new adjustment layer. Go to image radiance, okay, and then brush it where you want to brush it. So I just want to add a bit of radiance here on these clouds, just, you know, like that. And I want to add some radiance here. It's going to take care of the noise even more down there because it was really dark, and open up the shadows brought back a lot of noise. Okay, cool. Now I want to make this building pop even more, so I'm going to go to plus, add a new adjustment layer, and again I'm going to go to the famous HDR enhance, the famous HDR structure, and the small, medium, and large details. And I'm going to paint that because I hate what it does on everything else. I like on some of the buildings, so, but not even complete. It's way too much. So I'm going to make sure the opacity of my brush is about 50%. I'm going to brush there like this and like this. And voila. Okay. Something like that. And that's a single raw file before and after. Before and after. How is that? So I always have always a layer for details, always a layer for the sky, you know. Any questions so far, guys?
Do you do anything special if you know you're going to really enlarge one of your images to, say 20 by 30? Yeah. Then what I do is I'm always looking at it at 100%. You know, I always go like 100%. Make sure like I don't have weird chromatic aberration and things like this. I would not do this one because this was shot a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And I would not, it's not quality enough. Like with my gallery, they don't want any raw file from the Canon 5D Mark II. They only want like Sony A7R raw files because they really want. I mean, it's not true. I did have a few that went into the gallery, but they're blowing up the image so much that you need to have huge quality. So I would just spend a lot of time at 100%. This one did really well on the web, and there's still a lot of noise there. So you have a lot of noise there. That's fine. You can make a new adjustment layer just for the noise and like go crazy on it. You can go. I'm going to go to 100%. I'm going to use the space bar to see there's still a lot of noise there. So I'm just going to kill that noise, but only there. You don't need to kill the noise everywhere. Noise is usually not everywhere. Here it is. I'm going to go like 40 or something. Okay. And then I'm just going to paint that there, just where there is the noise, just in the corners there. But honestly, I would not print this photo. It's not enough good quality. And I actually have the bracketed version. So there was just to answer somebody's question about doing HDR on a single raw file. I actually have the 3 bracketed version of that shot. And in that case, you don't get that noise because you get a very clean overexposed photo that's completely noise free. But anyways,
I pretended that I only had this exposure to show you what you can do with just one exposure. That's a general idea. That's a general idea. All right, let's see here. Fit the screen. Okay, before, after, before. I love that photo. It's kind of cool. Looks like a very futuristic city, and that's called La Défense. La Défense is like a sort of a downtown area that's not in downtown because it's outside of Paris, but it's got all these crazy buildings. All right, it's 12:54. Do we have time for another project, or are we good, or can we do like some Q&A, or what do you want to do?
Well, I think we can try to sneak in another project, but there's one question, and that is, do you ever use Luminar in concert with Aurora, or do you ever use it as an alternative? Those were a couple of questions.
Yeah, you could use Luminar. You could do I would use Luminar after Aurora to do effects that you know. For example, let me show you on this photo. Let's try that on this photo. So I can go to open into Luminar here. And then you can go for this stuff that Luminar can do that Aurora cannot do, that I really love. If you really wanted to make this photo crazy, let's see here. I'm going to add the, there's which one I want to use. So image radiance, we have that. But this like advanced contrast, for example. Advanced contrast does some stuff sometimes. Look what it does on the sky. I love what it does. I'm going to do some advanced contrast here. And I'm going to try. It's probably not going to work. Maybe in the midtones too. A little bit. Shadows. Yeah. I love this advanced contrast stuff. You don't have that in Aurora. You have it in Luminar. I love it. I'm going to add some sun rays. That's the most crazy filter of all times. And the sun was actually here. Okay, so that looks really, I'm going to try to see how it masks automatically almost through the building there. And I'm just going to lower the amount a lot. Looks, I can do the looks and the lens a lot. Okay, and then penetration. Let's see, penetration, maybe like something like that. And just add back the sky there, you know, just to make it pop. That's a complete Luminar thing. So sometimes I do that, just what I did in front of your eyes. And again, with before, after, I just added sort of sunshine. There is sunshine coming back in the photo. Okay, well, that's, you wanted me to do another project? We have, I have plenty. I can go on for another hour.
We could probably do this for, I would love to watch you for like 3 hours, because I think you've taught us a lot of things that people don't normally use, especially with correcting the distortion and even going back and forth between Luminar and Aurora. Why don't we try to sneak in just one more of your special tricks with one more of your images? Because I think people would love that.
Okay, so let's go back to Aurora. I'm going to open and let's see, what do we have? What can I show you? Oh yeah, I want to show you that. Cinque Terre. Okay, so for this last video, I'm going to show you how I truly work. I only work using presets because, you know, I created these presets for Aurora. I know exactly what they do. So I always usually start with my basic preset, do some adjustment. You have to think that a preset is a starting point. It's not an end point. It's just, you know, I love working with presets because it often has stuff that I would have forget otherwise, you know, and it just speeds up my workflow. So I'm going to click on Photo Search Basic. I'm going to go faster on this one. And you see the water, I don't like so much the water. I think I'm going to add some magenta because I can maybe make it a bit warmer, a little bit warmer. And I don't like so much the water there. It's kind of weird, different exposure. So I'm going to add, like I did, and you will see on this one, it's crazy. I'm going to add the overexposed photo just for the water. Now, watch this. So, you know, when the water in the ocean was really fast, you know, half a second, 2 seconds, you know, a third of a second is going to give you a complete different look. And I usually go for a half second to 1 second when I shoot water. And that's usually my go-to. But check this out. Okay, that's the overexposed photo. Now I'm going to lower the exposure. And I'm only looking at the water. And I'm going to add some contrast and maybe add a bit of blue. And that water is just so much nicer. Maybe not so much blue, just a little bit of blue. It's just so much nicer. So check this out. I'm going to take a brush. And as I start painting, we have the old water going away and the new water coming. Look at that. And that water is so much more pleasing. It's so much more soothing. It's incredible. I love it. And you can always adjust the exposure if you want to, if you think it's too bright. But check this out. Look at the difference before and after. Voila. Okay, now we have the clouds there. So on the clouds, I can always go plus, new adjustment layer. And I can go, I'm going to go to Photo Search Clouds. So I know it's too much. So Photo Search Clouds, what it does, it adds a lot of image radiance. You can lower that. And it adds also some glow, probably, which is done here. Where is the glow? Oh, I didn't show you the dodge and burn. I just realized I didn't show you. That's something I do also glow. Yeah. No, it doesn't add glow. Okay. Well, if you don't like what an adjustment layer preset does, you can just erase it. I don't like what it does here. So I just want to add a little bit of, okay, I want to add some details to CD. So new adjustment layer, I'm going to go straight to Photo Search Details, which is here. Boom. Check this out. It's going to create crazy details everywhere. I'm going to take a little brush. I'm just going to bring back the details just on the rocks there. Okay. And then boom, add a new adjustment layer. And then maybe Photo Search Sunset Colors, like that. Okay, and then same thing, I take a brush. Never do an adjustment globally. Always look, okay, which part of this photo, this is kind of cool. And this is way too strong, so I'm going to lower the opacity. And I just want to bring back some warmth here, just a little bit. And as you paint, so just making the CD and the sun a little bit brighter. Voila. And then one more adjustment layer. And this time I'm going to go and add a bit of contrast. Well, I think this one was too much. So I can go back here and I can lower the opacity. I'm showing you how I really work. I work fast. I don't like to spend time in front of the computer. I like to be out there shooting. And Aurora really helps to go fast. Okay, and then maybe add a bit of contrast on this last one. I love this place. Cinque Terre in Italy, if you get a chance, it's just amazing. Beautiful place. Okay, something like that. And that's the before and that's the after. Like completely change the water and everything. And voila.
That's awesome. And you just showed us how in 3 minutes using your presets, you can go from a standard photo to something that is just striking. So
yes.
Speed, you just illustrated technique and speed at the same time.
Yeah, I just want to show you how I work,
Well, thank you so much. I think people are walking away with a boatload of techniques and information, as well as just an appreciation for your work. And I want to thank you for taking the time. And I want to make sure folks know to go to your website to find out more. So,
yeah, I have actually a website called Serge Ramelli Photo is like just my portfolio. But if you want my training, I have a lot of training, including an Aurora masterclass I just published, where you can see that all these projects and much more in details. Plus, I'm going to give you the source file so you can play around with it. And you find that on photoserge.com. And also, if you want to learn Lightroom or Photoshop, I've got like basically a whole sequence of 16 courses you can do. If you like my style of photography or teaching, check out photoserge.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm going to hand it back to Lori to close out the webinar.
Okay.
Great. Serge, fantastic presentation. And yes, I want that Hollywood sign for to put on that nice webinar banner for you. That'd be great. Thanks everyone for joining us. Please do visit his website and visit us for some more webinars as well. Serge, fantastic. Got a lot of wonderful comments and we really appreciate you. And thanks Abba for hosting this. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Au revoir.